Justin Hokanson. Auburn Live, part of On3 Sports, joins us now. This has been an ever-evolving interview. We started out talking A-Day. Now we're going to talk A-Day and Auburn basketball roster moving forward. And now we got to talk about Nike coming back. What is up, Hoke? How are you?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Doing well, thanks. As you know, we were down there Tuesday. John Cohen was on our show. He all but said it's going to be Nike. And then here we are a week later. It is now Nike. This is, I found after we asked John Cohen that question, how passionate Auburn fans are about this topic. And this is going to be universally praised, I would imagine, by Auburn fans.
Yeah. Yeah, they've been wanting to switch to Nike for a while. I mean, I think from a fan perspective, home run. For whatever reason. I mean, maybe you just love Nike apparel versus you love Under Armour apparel. I mean, it's, but yeah, fans just sort of want to switch to Nike. There's probably an allure of Nike just sort of being a more high profile, which it is, obviously, is just a more high profile brand. And so you want Auburn to be affiliated with notch, right? So-called brand versus Under Armour, just sort of take a step up. So fans love it. Coaches love it. I talked to a number of coaches. I know that Nike was the preferred direction, certainly of Hugh Freeze, certainly of Bruce Pearl, and most of the other coaches. So I think they're all happy about it. I don't know, like from a recruiting perspective, it's not the same as maybe it would have been a decade ago in terms of basketball. It'll certainly help. NIL and stuff has changed that game a little bit, so it'll help. It's not quite the impactful if it would have been 10 years ago when Auburn was with Nike, but it'll help. Football, it helps. I mean, it's a higher profile deal, but from a fan perspective, yeah, they love it.
Have you seen any numbers, Hope? Because I know Nike signed a 15-year deal with Texas. It was $250 million. I think this is a 10-year deal. At least that's the reports I saw. Any idea monetarily what that is?
I don't. I have no idea. I saw 10 years starting in 2025, which is kind of the other thing I was curious about. Was that's when the Under Armour deal ended. I wondered if they could somehow negotiate an early end to Under Armour. But that would be tough anyway. What are we, 2024? It takes time to build up. Like, it takes a year to do these jerseys anyway. So I don't even know that ending early with Under Armour was ever a possibility, because you can't just flip the switch and have Nike jerseys. That was going to take time to do. My understanding sort of the whole deal was Auburn was trying to be careful in when they announced it and kind of how they went about it, because they wanted to be respectful to Under Armour because of an 18-year relationship, but obviously be excited and talk about Nike and at least announce that. So they just kind of wanted to make sure that they didn't, they got to deal with Under Armour for another year. So they didn't want to just be too disrespectful in how they maybe ended it or announced Nike and then have to deal with Under Armour for another year and getting jerseys. That was kind of, I think, something that they thought about, but I haven't heard any specific numbers.
Yeah, you don't want Under Armour to use the full 90 days to get you the check, right?
Right,
right. Yeah, we'll get that check there when we can. Yeah, I mean, what's Auburn going to do at that point? Justin Hokanson with us at _J Hokanson, Auburn Live, part of On3 Sports. He's on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Let's move our attention to basketball now as the season has just wrapped up. The Auburn roster is interesting. I don't think a ton of people were surprised by KD Johnson hitting the portal. It seemed to be more of our audience surprised by Trey Donaldson. What was going on with both those guys? Were you surprised at either one of those guys hitting the portal?
No on KD. We had told our people that was coming. So, look, in all reality, KD probably should have maybe moved on last year. But Bruce is very loyal to guys that he brings in. He's very loyal to his players. He gives them a lot of chances, and so KD got another chance this year. But it was time to move on with KD. Trey, a little bit. They had, from my understanding, Trey sort of understood that they were going to go after a portal point guard and that it was going to be another open competition type deal, and that he was okay with that. I think some things changed the more the Donaldson camp, let's just say family, whoever is involved, looked at it. I think they just think that he is, worthy of 25 or 30 minutes a game somewhere. And that combined with they also, are looking at the NIL part of it and maybe trying to shop offers. And it just turned into a deal where they think he deserves more. And Bruce is not the guy that's guaranteeing anybody minutes. Certainly not Trey or even Aiden or whoever at the point guard position, because that was a struggle. So they just wanted something that I don't think Bruce and them were going to guarantee or give them. It was going to be another competition, take it or leave it. And so I think he entered the portal. I'm not sure where he'll end up. Maybe he might end up back in the state of Florida somewhere, but I don't expect him to be back on Auburn's roster. I think that ship's probably sailed. Don't want to completely close the door, but I don't I don't see how that they could sort of reverse course at this point.
I'm looking at a way too early top 25. They've got Auburn at number 18, and they've got Janai Broome coming back and being one of those starters. I think it would be wise. I mean, Broome had a great year. You saw at times he tried to stretch it out and show off his range a little bit. I think if he comes back and really gets better and better at shooting the basketball, this is a guy that could slide in the first round. What are you hearing right now with Broome? I know there's talks that he could possibly transfer out somewhere else. He could go test the NBA waters. To me, it makes sense for him to come back to Auburn, though.
I agree. I've written about it a few times on auburnlive.com. I think there's a lot of optimism he returns. Same with Dylan Cardwell. I'm probably much more optimistic about Dylan Cardwell. I think that I think that decision's been made. So if Cardwell doesn't come back, something changes from now. I think there's a lot of optimism that Johni Broome will return. I don't really think transferring is part of the equation. I know that there's some schools that have kind of reached back door. Hey, are you interested? Some big time schools, but I don't think that is something that Janai or his family have seriously thought about. I think they like Auburn. He's just an All-American. He's been there 2 years. I think they want, if he were to come back, I think they would want him to come back at Auburn. So I think it's more of, are we ready to start the pro journey, or do we want to come back? Obviously, he's going to get a bump in NIL. Obviously, you want to make sure the roster is going to be good. So maybe they're going, hey, what are we doing to address point guard, or like, how's the roster going to look? But other than that, I think there's optimism that he returns. He's got a little bit of time before he has to make it official, before he has to put his name into the draft. But I think there's optimism that Janai returns. And yeah, I mean, if he returns as one of the best big men in the country. I think the key for him is could he play a little 4 next year? That's what I think the Broome camp wants, like a little bit more time at the 4 versus just being a true center. I think if he does have a pro potential, I think he needs to play some forward. So I think that will be the interesting thing is, can they make some promises there, and could he potentially play some 4 next year at Auburn?
Justin Hokanson with us, Auburn Live, part of On 3 Sports. He's on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. With the Kentucky job open, Seth Greenberg, Lance was mentioning earlier today, says Bruce Pearl's the guy I would hire. I don't think Bruce is going to be the Kentucky coach, but it never hurts a coach for his name to float out there like that. He's got a great contract, but if Bruce were to use that opening to maybe with leverage get something at Auburn, what could you see? I mean, what does Bruce Pearl need at Auburn? Obviously, any coach wants more NIL.
Yeah. I think two things sort of stand out. I would say one, 2 weeks ago, I wrote about a basketball facility that he has been trying to make happen for years. It was approved 2 years ago, a new basketball-only facility, and then it got put on the back burner because NIL became the priority. Where is that at? I talked to John Cohen about that, and he said there's plans for that, but he didn't really give specifics. Are they just simply going to renovate what they have? That's a big need. They need more office space, lounge area, but they specifically need more practice gym and space because you've got men's basketball, women's basketball, volleyball, gymnastics. All that takes up Neville Arena and then the practice courts. They need more space. They need space for guys to go shoot 24/7, 365, swipe a key card, go shoot whenever they want. That can't happen now. So that's a big need. I would think he would try to push that. And then I think there's also a desire for Bruce. I think he'd love if Stephen could be set up to be the head coach in waiting the way that Houston did it with Kelvin Sampson. I don't know where John Cohen stands on that, but I think that's a desire of Bruce, that legacy sort of part of it. Can Stephen can we put something in writing to make him head coach in waiting? I don't know if John Cohen would do that or not, but I would imagine that would be something that he would love to make happen as well. So those are sort of two things that come to mind.
We're obviously, this, Hoke, we're not unbiased in this. Stephen comes on our show every week. We got a great relationship with him. We would love to see that. How would that be accepted among Auburn fans, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, obviously we deal with our fans on the site, which are the diehard fans, and there's been a little bit of that conversation there, and most of it has been positive. Has been really positive, especially if you think about it. Wouldn't happen now; it'd happen 5 years from now, right? Like 6 years from now when his contract runs out. So at that point, you'd have somebody like Stephen Pearl that would be a decade plus top assistant. He is Bruce's most relied on X's and O's guy. He's an intense guy. So you think about it from that perspective, I think it would make a lot of sense. I think fans trust Bruce for the most part. So if that's what he wanted, I think fans would be fine with that and go along with it. And then it would be in Stephen's hands, right, to do with the program what he can do, and then he gets judged on that. But I think most fans think so highly of Bruce Pearl that if that's what he wants, if Bruce thought that's what the basketball program needed to keep going, and if Bruce also said, hey, I'll stick around, maybe be an ambassador, something like that, like I think there's a situation where it would make a lot of sense, and I think fans would be in favor of it. You just can't read the future and know what it looks like, and I don't know if John Cohen wants to commit to something like that, but I think the fans, for the most part, would be fine with it because they have such love and affinity for Bruce.
Hey, to football, spring game this past weekend, you were part of the 33,000 and change. 4 quarterbacks played, no turnovers. We know it's Payton Thorne's offense, but Hank Brown, Holden Geriner, who's going to be that number 2 guy, at least gut feel right now?
I feel like Hank, although Holden percentage-wise was better in the game, but he didn't really take any deep shots. I would sort of lean Hank. I don't know that there's a big difference between Holden and Hank. And Hank's younger. Hank's the guy that Hugh Freeze targeted at Liberty and then brought him there, whereas he didn't recruit Holden. I think Hank makes a little bit quicker decisions. I think he's just a little bit quicker to get the ball out of his hands. I think Hank's a little bit more of a gunslinger. Like he'll take some shots. You saw that throw to Cam Coleman he made. I think he's not afraid to sling it downfield. So I would probably lean Hank Brown being the number 2 guy, but it's probably pretty close. But if Payton Thorne were to go down in a game, that might be a different discussion, only because Holden has been around a little bit longer. So let's say Payton goes down in a game. I could maybe see Holden going in a certain game because he's got more just overall college experience. But I think if you just had to pick who's the second best quarterback, you're probably thinking Hank Brown right now, which sort of it'll be interesting to see if I don't think Hank's going anywhere, but Holden's a guy who's now been at Auburn for a few years. Like, does he want to continue to try to win this job, or does he want to move on and try to go somewhere else? That'll be interesting to watch in April.
Hoke, percent chance you give Cam Coleman of finally breaking through and being that 1,000-yard receiver Auburn has not had since Ronney Daniels. I know it's only one spring game. It's 94 receiving yards of 4 catches, a circus catch, had a touchdown. I mean, Auburn fans have longed for that 1,000-yard receiver. Do you think Cam Coleman could do that as a freshman?
Oh, as a freshman, I mean, I would lean no, but he could push it. I mean, Rivaldo Fairweather's a weapon. You're gonna have some other receivers as a weapon. You've got multiple running backs that are gonna get the ball. The quarterback could run the ball, and so I don't know if he can do that. Now you're playing 12 games. You toss in a bowl, 13 games. It's a lot, and he will be a target downfield, so he could definitely be 15 yards a catch potentially, and so he could make some big plays. I would lean no as a true freshman. I don't know that I want to put that on him, that I think he can go get 1,000 yards. But by year 2, yeah. I mean, I think he could definitely be that guy. Give him another year of just becoming a receiver, instincts, leverage, route running, added to his physical tools. And I think that'd be a very realistic goal for him going into year 2.
Was there anything to you obvious that jumped out between differences between a Ron Roberts defense in that game and DJ Durkin, or from the players you talked to afterwards? Because you saw it. We talked to Payton Thorne and Luke Dill, and they said the biggest thing that jumps out year to year for them is just detail in the offense. I'm curious on the defensive side, what jumped out to you or the players' difference between Ron Roberts and DJ Durkin?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I think that probably in terms of scheme, I think Durkin's going to blitz a good bit. I think the way he blitzes could be a little bit different, whereas I think Ron Roberts loved to bring the nickel, whether it was Keontae Scott or somebody else. I think Durkin's going to rely more on linebackers being the guys that blitz and linebackers being in the box and doing some of that pressuring of the quarterback. The other thing I would say is I think nobody would say anything about Ron Roberts' on-the-field performance. I don't think you could – I thought Auburn's defense played well last year. I think Ron Roberts did a very good job. I think off the field is where there was some disconnect with coaches and players. Roberts was just he was a hard-nosed guy. You either got it or you didn't. You liked him or you didn't. He didn't – there wasn't a lot of middle ground there. Everything I've heard from players and coaches about Durkin is really – I don't know Durkin, so it's interesting to me to hear, but they love him. They think – they talk about him like I can go to his office and talk about off-the-field stuff. They talk about him coming in and being able to coach them in a way that gets better performance on the field without making them feel like putting them down, which I think Roberts could sort of – that was tough. Roberts is sort of a hard-nosed guy, and if you got your feelings hurt, too bad. I think Durkin, from talking to the players, does a good job of coaching them and making them improve, but not making them feel like they're a failure or embarrassing them or anything like that. So I've heard a lot of good stuff in terms of how Durkin is handling sort of those relationships from coaches and players. So that's probably a difference off the field as well.
So go follow Hoke on Twitter @_J Hokanson. Subscribe. Auburn Live, part of On3 Sports. They're killing it for On3, one of the top websites, one of the top sites there for all of On3. They have been red hot to start it with On3 Sports. Hoke, thank you very much for the time, man. Have a great week.
Thanks, man. Anytime.
All right, buddy. Take care. Hoke with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.